what can we do to reverse that decision? And when I started talking with Mileage Council about what would be the right way to approach this legislatively. And then I was approached by Robin and others on the WILFP, PF, and the Women's League for Peace and Freedom, with the opportunity for introducing a resolution, and the resolution to change the United States Constitution to state that corporations are not persons, and to allow for people, human persons, to be in the democratic process, have a voice in the democracy. And then beyond that, to bring David Cobb here to talk about his thoughts on the issue. And David is a constitutional lawyer who has experience across the board, it seems both at the grassroots level and then also at the national level, running for president for the Green Party. And I did send out your bio to folks in the State House. And I'm going to let you talk a little bit about yourself, and so we can move on with the important part of today, which is your opportunity to present on this issue. And thank you for being here, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say. And just one last thing. I'm going to have to leave at some point, but Senator Jeanette White will moderate when it's time for questions. Yeah, if needed, that would be great. So.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to jump right to it. You know, it's true, I've run for public office, I have sued corporate polluters, I have done grassroots organizing, I have lobbied elected officials. I also will admit, I have been to jail for justice. I have engaged in nonviolent civil disobedience. I'm proud of the fact that I've used all the tools in the toolbox to try to create effective change, to try to create the society that the majority of Americans want. And I'll say very plainly and simply, it is clear that the majority of Americans are not happy with the way our government is operating. And if you scratch the surface time and time again, what you will find is across the political spectrum, whether they are principled conservatives or are progressives or self-described independents, what people understand and know at their gut is that corporations are not merely exercising power today. They are ruling us. They are actually responsible for making many of the fundamental public policy decisions that affect our lives. What access to health care we may have. And as you are taking up the important issue of health care reform, meaningful health care reform in this state, you know as elected officials you're going to come up against corporate power. You already have, and you'll continue to have to. But it doesn't stop there. It is true about transportation choices. Our choices are being basically framed by these unelected and unaccountable corporate CEOs on a day-to-day basis. And as elected officials, you well know that many times things that you would like to do, things that your constituents come and ask you to do, you were told you're not allowed to do certain things because you may be, or in fact definitely would be, running afoul of corporations' constitutional rights. Now, I want to stop for a moment and be very clear about something. The shorthand is corporate personhood. And that means that there are different types of personhood for corporations. To abolish corporate personhood would not mean to say that corporations no longer have to follow laws that say no person shall. What we're actually talking about is whether corporations have inherent constitutional rights. And so with your permission, I'm going to go to the blackboard very quickly and outline why I think this is so critically important. You know, the U.S. Constitution begins with three hallowed words in this country. We the people. And we the people create government. Now, bear with me because this is something that we all know, but I want to really frame what it means, what corporate personhood really means. Because in this document, we the people are described as being free and sovereign. Government is subordinate and accountable. Government is subordinate to whom? To we the people. It's accountable to whom? We the people. We the people are described as having individual rights. Government, under this framework, has collective duties. Now, that's because all legitimate political power resides with the people, but we delegate a certain amount of power to government in order to carry out the duties that we want. Now, this should look like basic civics to all of us. And I look at this and I think, this is actually brilliant. It really is, because it captures our civil libertarian impulses. Don't tread on me. You know, Vermonters are kind of used to that philosophy, right? And to your credit, to all of our credits, to be a sovereign people means that we have inherent, inalienable human rights that cannot be violated. I don't need the majority's permission before I engage in political speech. Or I don't need the majority's permission before I am allowed to associate with somebody. But it doesn't stop there. Our libertarian friends sometimes forget that there is a public aspect to this. In other words, there is a communitarian ethos as well. And I look at this and I think this is brilliant. We should try that in this country. I think that representative democracy in a Republican form of government will work. And I'm very serious, because the problem is we've never actually had a truly functioning democracy. Of course, when the Constitution is first founded, who legally are persons at that time? White men of property. The entire history of the United States, Howard Zinn has said, has been a history, a struggle by ordinary persons to be defined as persons under law. And that is our legacy, and it should be applauded. The problem is that corporations, which are created by the state government, by the way, it's not a privilege to incorporate and get limited liability. The Secretary of State has to issue a charter, and the charter comes from government. The charter can be revoked by either state initiative or by the Attorney General. The charter can actually describe what can or can't be allowed to have, and in fact, what duties they can do. You know, properly understood then, a corporation should be considered to be a quasi-public, quasi-private entity. And this is the problem. And just to put a fine point on it, for the first 75 years of this country, in order to create a corporation, if I wanted to incorporate in Vermont, I had to come to you, the legislature, and prove that there was a public need that was not being met. I had to prove that that need could not be met by existing government and was not likely to be met by existing government. And so please give me a charter. It would usually only last 10 to 20 years, at which point it automatically dissolved. In the process of applying for it, I had to not only prove that there was a public need, but I had to promise that I would always act in the public interest. And if I was ever found to act outside the public interest, even within that 10 or 20 years, you would revoke my charter. The point I'm making is, in its original inception in this country, corporations were very tightly controlled instruments for ensuring that the public was protected and business was done. So I am not anti-corporation at all. I support commerce. I absolutely support the existence of corporations and encouraging the appropriate use of the corporation. But here's the kicker. What does it mean to be an actual free and sovereign citizen in a democratic republic? It means that my rights cannot be violated by government. And if there are laws passed that actually do violate my rights, or Robin's rights, or any of your rights, it is appropriate for you as a human being to be able to go into court and sue, claiming that the government is infringing upon your rights. And that's the kicker. When the federal courts say, no, no, a corporation is a person with constitutional rights, it perverts this entire framework. It means that we, the people, through our elected representatives, are no longer able to appropriately control commerce and business. And that's why...